It was funny without the mutual suffering they endured at the hospital. Erila and Gabriel had very little to talk about. Gabriel supposed that Erila was pining for her lady love, which might dampen her communication skills. Though if this was the case, he had sorely underestimated just how close two people could get in a short amount of time. The silence was becoming uncomfortable even for Gabriel, even more so as there was only one other person in the restaurant. So he decided to spark a conversation. What animal does your bacon stuff come from? Gabriel asked, pushing around his toast. Erila looked up from her meal, and Gabriel got the distinct impression that she was analysing each word he had used. He supposed this was to be expected. Her profession required her to understand behaviours and word choice, and he guessed that it was hard to turn the switch off. This particular strip? Nothing. It's cloned. The animal it was cloned from was a beryl, Erila explained. It's a medium-sized herbivore, feeds mostly on fast-growing plants, makes some good livestock, she added. She paused between bites and put down her fork. Gabriel, might I ask you a personal question? Depends on the question, Gabriel replied. Right, Erila said, taking a moment to compose the question. I've noticed that whenever you talk about your family, you pause briefly. Do you have an explanation for that? Gabriel's eyes locked onto her, and he grabbed his toasted carbohydrate produce from his plate and began to chew. When he had swallowed, Gabriel replied, My family and I have a complicated relationship. Yet you keep a locket with a picture of your sister, literally right next to your heart, stated Erila. This line of questioning is over, Gabriel stated, coldly. None of us saw the picture. Is it even your sister? Said Erila, musing more to herself than Gabriel. This line of questioning is over, Gabriel ordered, as close to shouting as possible without crossing that line. Erila was unperturbed by the anger. She had seen enough of it in her profession and knew how to diffuse the situation. Very well. I am a professional, however. If you ever have any problems and you need to talk, you can call me at any time, Erila reminded him. I'm fine, Gabriel reiterated. Gabriel's PDA pipped, and any tension was quickly forgotten. He had received an email from the mayor's office before it officially opened. They must be desperate to talk to you, Erila said, finishing her breakfast. Reading through the message, Gabriel said, They want to discuss compensation for what occurred. Money? Are you going to turn that down? Erila asked, wondering what would win out, greed or introversion. No, Gabriel replied, making the correct choice. Thank you for meeting me on such short notice, Mayor Possum Referee said as Gabriel and Nish sat opposite her. Not a problem, although I would like to keep this brief. I do have a holiday to get back to, Gabriel replied, taking note of the Serpentine woman's distinctive patterning. It was like a mosaic, filled with vibrant reds and oranges. Quite so, Possum Referee said, a little taken aback by the bluntness, but at least this meant she would not be here for hours. Firstly, I would like to extend an official apology for what occurred on the 661st, for the trauma you suffered and the injuries you sustained, Possum Referee explained, her tongue wagging in the air in a complicated motion that probably had some meaning, but Gabriel had no idea what. We also know words are cheap, so we would like to offer you 60,000 credits each, Mr. Rattloo, Miss Nitch and Miss Pista, Possum Referee added, as Nish buzzed at the news, and Gabriel leaned back. That was a sizable amount of money, more than he made in a year. On top of that, we will fully reimburse you for the cost of your stay here, Possum Referee stated, and there was even more silence with the two sitting opposite her. It was Gabriel who spoke first, in exchange for signing a waiver, refusing to sue. Possum Referee made a snorting sound, and after a few seconds of composing herself, she said, Yes, that is the gist of it. Gabriel supposed that was fair. The whole point of suing would be to get a cash payout, and this way, he would get the money immediately, plus another 10 grand for the reimbursement. I'm game. Sounds fair, Nish stated, who had no more desire for a levy trial than Gabriel. Sure, said Gabriel, as blunt as ever. Good. I'm glad we could agree so quickly. Now, there are 2 more things, Mr. Rattloo. For your act of heroism, we would like to award you the text loop. Also, if possible, we would like to ask your opinion about the security of our facilities, Possum Referee explained, feeling much more confident with how this was going. Do I have to? Asked Gabriel. It looked too much like an annoyed child than he intended. Well, no, we understand that you are a civilian and your expertise in security is... Possum Referee said, but Gabriel cut her off and refined his question. No, I mean, do I have to accept the award? Possum Referee was given pause. As far as she knew, no one had ever refused the honour. It's not a legal requirement, she replied. Then no, stated Gabriel. But you are willing to give us some advice about habitat safety? Said Possum Referee. I can tell you about what I've seen in other, more secure zoos, but I don't know how much help it will be, Gabriel explained. All we ask is that you tell the staff at the zoo what you've seen in more secure facilities. That's where you can get a leg up before the specialists arrive, replied Possenefri. Specialists? Asked Nish. The unfortunate events that day have raised serious safety concerns about the zoo. We will perform a comprehensive safety review to prevent anything like this from happening again, explained Possenefri. Mr. Radley will not always be there to save someone. You all got incredibly lucky. Good, Nish explained, unsure what else she should say. Gabriel had expected far more feet dragging. It seemed longer lifespans were not the only advantage habitable worlders possessed. They had more common sense as well, at least in certain fields. When do you want me to perform my inspection? Asked Gabriel. He did not want to do it, but if it helped just one person, there was no good reason to refuse. You seem like a man that prefers to get things out of the way, so we can do it within the hour if you would like, Possenefri replied, her tongue twirling in a figure of 8. Drones. That's why I jumped in, you have no drones, Gabriel explained, peering over the Ventora enclosure. It was just the Ventora enclosure, as Trenty the Carnodon was still at the vet's, undergoing close supervision as her jaw healed. Gabriel was happy that he had not killed her, though he felt only moderately better knowing that he had possibly crippled her for life. I see, Fensel replied. That was going to be very expensive, even more so than they had initially planned. I've never seen them used. The main goal is to stop people from getting in, period, said Gabriel. On that note, I would remove any trees close to the fences. Some people can fly, after all, he added, gesturing to the very same tree Pistra had left from days ago. There was a rustle from the bushes below, and a familiar head emerged from the foliage. It was the Ventoro pack leader. Gabriel knew it was them because of the triangle pattern on its forehead. The Ventoro looked up at the fence and hissed when it saw Gabriel. The creature made an alarm call, and the entire pack, what was left of them, emerged from the undergrowth and began honking, roaring and hissing at Gabriel. They do not like you, Fensel stated bluntly, as the Ventoro threat display intensified. Gabriel had been right to come here on his own. The last thing Pistra and Nish needed was this blunt of a reminder. Gabriel was also relieved that the entire area had been cordoned off. While there was nothing wrong with the exhibit, and it was as secure as it had ever been, the staff had decided that until new and improved measures were put in place, it was best that the public not be allowed access. This had a benefit from Gabriel's perspective. It meant he only had to talk to Fensel, and no one was here to gawk at him. Having enough of the beast's cries, Gabriel walked away from the enclosure and out of sight. Once he was gone, the Ventoro calmed down, and the noise stopped. It was a remarkable thing you did, Fensel said, as he removed himself from the Ventoro's sight, though they were not bothered by his presence. So I've been told, replied Gabriel, as he took a better look at the alien. Feline was the word Gabriel would use to describe Fessel. His face was very feline, though he was covered in millions of tiny grain-sized scales rather than skin. He had no tail, and walked on his knuckles like a gorilla, occasionally rearing on his hind legs to gesture. Gabriel's leading theory was that he did this to emphasize, similar to hand gestures in humans, the higher he stood, the more serious he was. What happened to the ones I killed? Asked Gabriel, that pang of guilt crawling back up once again. Ventoro have a complex mourning ritual. We simply left the bodies there, and they did what they did, Vessel explained. I think they lay sticks in the body and perform a dance. You would need to ask one of the keepers for a play-by-play, he added. Isn't that a biological hazard? Asked Gabriel. The enclosure is very large, and neither Ventoro nor Conodons will eat dead members of the same or the other species, replied Vessel. That was better than he feared. It was of some comfort to know that the beast had received the proper send-off.